Okay, this episode is titled The Underdwellers. It came out on October 31st, 1992.
No, it was Halloween.
It came out on Halloween, yeah. Directed by Frank Paur, written by Jules Dennis and Richard Mueller. Featuring Kevin Conroy as Batman Bruce Wayne, Efren Zimbalist Jr. as Alfred Pennyworth, Victoria Carroll as Matron, and Michael Pataki as the Sewer King. So, some creds for some of the actors and directors and writers. Michael Pataki died in 2010 at the age of 72. He played Dr. Hoffman in Halloween 4. He played Nikolai Koloff in Rocky 4. He played Mime Number 4 in East Rider. There's a lot of fours in his creds. And he also played the warden and the coach in Dexter's Lab. Do you remember the warden and the coach in those shows? The show? Vaguely, too. I remember the coach. He died
at the age that Michael Keaton is now, then.
Yes. Why did you compare? Yes, he did. Some people live past 72. Some people die at 72.
It just is a comparison.
Okay.
I like stats. Like
everything is before or after Keaton.
BK.
BK. Director Frank Paur. You're laughing. I know why you're laughing, because it sounds like a fart. We said this as kids. Like, Frank Paur.
Mr. Poir. Paging Dr. Poir. You're wanted in surgery room 3.
Paging Dr. Poir. What do you think, Dr. Poir? Who farted?
I couldn't. Someone's giving me a diagnosis. Hello, I'm your doctor, Dr. Poir.
Why is it so funny?
Because our family has always spelt farts as PWA. And that's the noise that, like, I still make my wife laugh all the time. If we're watching a show, if someone says something that kind of means they could potentially be talking about a fart, or like they're like someone's, you're watching a drama and someone's like, I have something very serious to tell you, I'll always out loud just go, and it'll always make her laugh, and she hates that she laughs at it as well. She's like, fucking asshole. I should not find that funny. And we watch a lot of golf, and usually if it's like a serious shot, like she's like, I know you're going to do it. And like the moment they lift that club, and then they hit it. Oh, it's so funny. So I'm sorry if Paul is listening. I'm so sorry.
But what if it's not pronounced Paur? What if it's like it's Paur? So it could be Frank Paur. But then it sounds like you smelt a bad fart.
I'm sorry.
All right. For the director of this episode, Frank Paur, has directed 16 episodes of Batman the Animated Series, as well as a sequence director for Mask of the Phantasm. Yeah, he also directed 16 episodes of the show Gargoyles, 18 episodes of Todd McFarlane's Spawn, 3 episodes of Men in Black, the cartoon, 17 episodes of X-Men The Evolution, and 38 episodes of Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes.
Oh, I love that show.
Always we will fight as one.
There was 2 Avengers shows. Was that the one I like?
It is the one. Yeah, Forever
Avengers Assemble.
No, that's the one that you don't like. That's got the better name, but Earth's Mightiest Heroes was the one that we both really liked.
Well, speaking of Gargoyles, did I tell you that I was offered to draw that series with the series creator at Dynamite?
No.
Yeah, I couldn't take it because I was busy, but they pretty much bringing Gargoyles back. I think the book's out now, but yeah, I was offered to be the artist on that.
Oh, that's interesting. Well, that's a cool little fun fact.
Yep.
Yeah, that would have been, if you could have done it, that would have been cool. But also,
I didn't watch the show as a kid, so that's why I paused.
That's what I was about to say. We didn't watch it. Yeah. Writer Jules Dennis has written 4 episodes of Batman the Animated Series, as well as episodes for Real Ghostbusters, Freakazoid, Mighty Max, Action Man, Street Sharks, Extreme Dinosaurs. Do you remember this show? Extreme Dinosaurs, no. I had totally forgotten about, and I Googled it. It's about dinosaurs that live on the moon, and they're like street sharks combined with dinosaurs, or like Ninja Turtles, and they're trying to stop a bunch of evil raptors from turning the world into a more destroying the ozone, so they can turn the world into a more hot, friendly environment for their dino companions.
I don't recognize these guys at all, but they look awesome.
Yeah, it was one of those shows that, like Street Sharks, Biker Mice from Mars, Ninja Turtles, where they were blending people with SWAT cats. You know, they were blending people with all these animals, and it was one that I watched that I totally forgot about. So
it's one of my goals with my comic book company is to acquire IPs, and I want to acquire Biker Mice from Mars, Street Sharks, like all of those like off-brand Turtles knockoffs.
Extreme Dinosaurs
would definitely be one of them, and I just want to do like a big like Avengers Age of Ultron crossover with all of them.
That would be sick. Oh my god, just to see like the Biker Mice from Mars, Street Sharks, Extreme Dinosaurs, all of them like charging at the bad guys, which could be the Velociraptors from
like, you know, you could have an alien invasion coming from outer space, and who's the first people to see it? The Biker Mice from Mars. As it enters into it just sounds fun as shit. Could you imagine drawing like a cover full of Biker Mice from Mars and Street Sharks and Extreme Dinosaurs?
Well, you can't do Ninja Turtles, but yeah, all of those like off-brand.
Talk to IDW, do a crossover. IDW just announced a pretty cool crossover, which is Turtles vs. Street Fighter, which I was like, I want to read and draw that. So I immediately emailed my Turtles editor. I was like, hello, I would like to do a cover for this, please. I love Street Fighter and Turtles.
That'd be really cool. The other writer of this episode, Richard Mueller, co-wrote the same 4 episodes of Batman the Animated Series with Jules Dennis. He also wrote episodes for Our Real Ghostbusters, Captain Planet, Biker Mice from Mars, Mighty Max, X-Men the Animated Series, Mummies Alive, which is another show I forgot about. That was
God, that sounds familiar. Mummies Alive.
It was an animated show about these like mummies that would gain these superpowers when they needed to. Another one that was like in the vein of like Bucky O'Hare. Do you remember Bucky O'Hare?
Of course I do. These guys look awesome. The villains look cool as well. It's all like Egyptian themed and stuff.
Yeah, it was a great show. I watched a lot of that as well. There was a lot of like creds for these writers that brought me way back to the early 90s.
Property I'll have to scoop up at Speech Comics.
And finally, Richard Mueller wrote for RoboCop Alpha Commando, which we've established off-pod was one of my favorite cartoons growing up. I had toys of this. I watched it every morning. I loved RoboCop and I love this show. So I'm totally down. You know I love RoboCop, bud. I think he's fucking cool. I think he's great. He's such a cool character. And his name is Alex, so maybe that has something to do with it. As a kid, I was like, someone with my name, but he's a robot freak with a bald head and no penis. Okay, so director Frank Paur said of this episode, it was my first episode as director, and there are still things in it that I cringe at. Usually when we get an episode, we get a lot of discretion and change things. I wish I'd have been able to spend more time on that script. Another problem at the time was that we had storyboard people who made things difficult. I found myself going back 2 or 3 times to fix scenes. They didn't quite understand we were shooting for a higher standard, so there was always a constant drain on my time. That whole opening, the kids playing chicken with the train, should have been cut. That's what we had to contend with at the beginning of this season. We had these little public service announcements worked into the script, a concept we nixed really quick. So that's interesting that they were made to put those like things in there as a PSA for kids. And I noticed that a lot in this episode when Batman's just like, if you play chicken long enough, you fry, when talking to the kids.
Yeah. It didn't tell me that it was a PSA. Like, I didn't realize it was a PSA to begin with.
Well, and also when he grabs the gun from the kid and he's like, children and guns never mix. Like, that was a total PSA.
Yeah, I guess so. But I think, you know, he has a reason to say that. Like, he says childhood trauma with guns.
True, it does. And it works in the show. But I felt like they were definitely talking to kids a lot in this episode.
You know, it's one thing I realized while watching this one, like, why Batman brings in wards and kids and stuff is because, like, he, like, as a kid after his parents died, he must have thought, like, I'm so lucky to have, like, Alfred in the home and all this stuff to go through, but there's kids that don't have what I have. And if I can...
Oh, you went deep on this episode.
And if I can, like, provide a little bit of, like, hope and, like, peace for them in the worst times of their life, then I feel like I'm doing more than fighting criminals on the street. Like, that was one thing that I took from this episode where I was like...
And Batman took it really personally, didn't he? Like,
yeah.
He, like, straight up...
into his home.
Yeah, and also he said to the Sewer King, like, this for the judge and courts to decide, but I'm really tempted.
Well, think about it. They're all orphans. That's what he was. And but they didn't have Wayne Manor to go to, so they had to follow this awful guy in the sewer. I actually really enjoyed this episode.
So some fun facts, and then we'll get into review, because I did too. The Sewer King's line, "A few hours in the light will make Jack a bright boy," is influenced obviously by The Shining's "All work and no play makes Jack a dull boy." This episode has the smallest credited cast of the entire DCAU, with only 4 names listed, so it's a very tiny cast for this episode. The plot of this episode has many similarities to Charles Dickens' Oliver Twist. The Sewer King wears glasses with just the left glass being darkened. Now, I left this in here because my girlfriend, when we first met, right, and we went on a few dates, she's like, "Do you have any like fun fact to tell me?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" She's like, "What's something that like you know that people usually don't know?" So I was like, okay, and my go-to, until only a few years ago, was from Batman the Animated Series, which is you can't read in your dreams because you dream with the right side and you read with the left side, which is total bullshit. But at the time, I thought it was true. And she was like, "Wow, that is a cool fact. Did not know that." Then she's like, "Want to know mine? Do you know why pirates wear eye patches?" And I was like,
"Oh, yeah. I've heard this, yeah."
And she's like, "Well, they wear eye patches because they would have to go above and below deck all the time. And obviously below deck is completely dark. So what they would do is they wear their eye patch, which would get acclimated, that eye would get acclimated to the dark. And then when they go below deck, they pull the eye patch over to the other eye that's obviously been blinded by the light. And the eye that's been revealed, that's only been acclimated to the dark, can see in the dark below deck." I was like, that's a really cool fact.
Have you confirmed this fact?
Yes, I have. And it even says it here, that the Sewer King wore a left eyeglass being darkened, and this would have helped him to see well instantly when entering dark areas from bright, and vice versa, as his left eye would always have been dark adapted and his right eye would have been light adapted. Pirates often used eye patches on one eye for the same purpose. So when I showed her this, she was like, "Vindication!" Okay, next fun fact. The villains of this episode seem to draw heavily from the X-Men's Morlocks, a group of mutants who live in the sewers and resort to thievery. So that sounds very similar to this. And then finally, Batman says "later" to the alligators as a nod to the phrase "later, gator." All right, those are my fun facts done. Let's get into our review. What did you think of this episode?
Well, I went into it expecting it to be the worst thing I was ever going to see, but it really was not. Like I said, I fell in love with the idea of Batman. Like, this is like, it's a shame that Robin's already Robin, because this is like a nice like tease of like him contemplating the idea of taking people in.
Yes.
I also thought that this episode was going to end with opening, an orphanage for all these children to give them a better home, but it didn't.
Yeah, at the end, they're all like, they come out of the sewers and the police are there, and I'm like, and what happens to them?
Some lady just takes them off, doesn't she?
Yeah, probably to a shitty orphanage. But I guess it's better than the sewer.
It would have been a nice ending and then meeting the kid as Bruce would have been cool, and not Batman.
Oh, that would have been such a great scene.
And then the kid, he goes into the car, he watches him leave, and he goes in the car, and Alfred's like putting him in the car, and he knows Alfred, obviously. So the kid's like, "Oh, that's
dude, that is genius. I love that." And that could have been a minute, that would have been so good as a bookend to this episode, because I felt I liked this episode. I was surprised actually that I liked it, but I felt like some of the him trying to look for the hideout and some of the sewer scenes were drawn out, and I'm like, just cut that back a bit, and then if we put in your idea in place, it would have been like such a mwah, chef's kiss episode. That's a really good idea. So what did you think of the Sewer King?
Just a stereotypical bad guy, right? Like, when the kids leave, he has a maniac laugh for no reason at all.
What's the line that you kept on watching?
You want me to tell you the thing that cracked me up the most?
Yes, because I'm not sure if I know.
Okay, well, towards the end, Batman and him are fighting on top of pipes, and he's trying to knock Batman into the water so his alligators can eat him. And then Batman trips the guy, so he's falling into the water. And Batman says, "Take my hand," and he just screams at the top of his lungs. Never. I'm never going to take your fucking hand, bitch. Ever.
I know exactly what you're talking about, and that was really funny. I love that the never lasted so long as he was falling into the water as well. A good 2 seconds. I'm like, how big was that drop? Also, in that scene, Batman literally kicks him into the gator water. Yes, he has that feeble attempt to take my hand, but after he falls in the water, he's like, a gruesome fate for a gruesome man. And he totally accepts that he's just killed someone, right?
Well, he didn't kill him.
But he accepts that he has. He doesn't know that he's alive. In that moment, he kicks him into the water, tries to save him.
This guy.
Yeah, and then he's just like, well, okay, gruesome fate for a gruesome man. I'm like, where's your code, Bruce? What happened to that one? I think Sewer King is pretty good. He's not thought out as much as I hope as other villains are in this show.
Copy and paste. We've seen this type of guy before.
He's very Disney villain, is what I think. He had this
whole episode's very Disney. The animation of the children and stuff, it doesn't look like Bruce Timm's art style, does it?
No, it doesn't. It feels a bit like... You ever see that movie, The Rescuers, the animated movie with the two mice? And there was... It
reminds me of the animation for... There was like an old pirate show that we watched as kids.
Pirates of Darkwater.
Yes, Pirates of Darkwater.
Yes.
It looked like.
Yes, it did. Yeah, like the Sewer King, he had a weird speech pattern.
Just be like, for you too. Like he just like would like do a couple words a couple times.
Yes, he would. And he's like, that is true. That is true. That is true.
Yes.
He had to say things 3 times like an obsession, like OCD. I must say it.
Get me a whole cooked chicken.
Where did he get that chicken? Where did he get it?
Obviously, someone had to go into someone's oven and take like a giant Thanksgiving turkey, because it even had like gravy and potatoes at the bottom of it.
I know, and they got to bring that down.
You buy from the store,
and you got to bring that down in the sewer, and it's going to be awful. So I liked when the 2 kids were on top of the train playing chicken, and one just looks over his shoulder, and Batman is just there, and it scares the kid so much that he just bails off the train. Like, they're going 100 miles per hour on that train. That kid is dead. I don't know. Like, there wasn't water.
They're on a bridge, aren't they? Like, where
they're on a bridge. Go? Exactly, because at the end, when Batman has them both, and he's like, you play chicken long enough, you fry, they're both off that bridge, and they're standing on pavement, and I'm like, that kid is dead. Like, that's a ghost. How is he alive? And as we were saying, with you play chicken long enough, do you think Batman called Alfred and was like, I need a good chicken joke? I just got these kids.
You'll get it from Alfred because he was in such a silly mood in this episode. It was fantastic.
He was. I really liked seeing him try and teach the kid how to be more of a gentleman and such. And he kept on taking the silverware, kept on pocketing it.
That was all very funny. I mean, when you first see Alfred in I think Alfred's had a couple drinks, by the way.
Yes.
When you first see him in the Batcave, because he's in the background listening to the radio and he's like, what, don't fancy Brahms tonight, sir?
And he also, he didn't believe, he laughed when Bruce said a leprechaun. Yeah. And I'm like, Alfred, you know Gotham is full of these fantastical villains. I
thought a giant man bat the other day. But...
or a giant Venus flytrap that was eating men. But
it wasn't there. You can't prove it.
He draws the line at leprechauns. What the fuck?
Yeah. And he's just in the background, he's like, holiday, play some golf and stuff. And he does a big golf swing. It seems like he's had a few ports and he's having a good time.
I like drunk Alfred. He's fun.
Yeah.
So Batman does this jumping across car rooftops in traffic at one point, and I'm thinking, why didn't you just back grapple over it for one? And also, did you see there's a guy that's way too big for his car that he's hey, he's the size of his car. I'm like, what are you driving there?
Hey, that's my back you just jumped on.
I liked how when the police officer was driving down, when she sees Batman, she sees bat signals in her pupils. Did you see that?
Yes, I did see that, yeah.
I thought that was fun. So when the kid whacks himself in the shin with the hoe, I winced. Did you feel that? I know that pain.
It's like Family Guy with Peter Griffin, ah.
When I saw that, I was like, ooh.
But why did the other kid tell him to stop? What, if you complain about your work, what, is the Sewer King going to beat you or something?
You can't talk. Make no noise. So him going, was making a noise.
Gotcha. I didn't even put two together that none of the children make noises.
That was one of his rules. When Sewer King...
Yes, no noises. I'll speak all the words for you.
I'll say it 3 times. When the Sewer King grabs the kid who spoke for punishment, I thought it was going to be something awful, I'm going to feed you to my alligators.
Yeah. There goes one of your fingers.
But instead, he just throws him in like a locked room with some LEDs. And I'm like, that's not so bad. Like, at first, he'd probably be like, oh, it's bright. But then after a while, he's like, wait a minute, I'm adjusted to this. I don't know.
If only I could close my eyes.
Yeah.
Close his eyes.
And also, like, you get a break from this horrible work he's putting you through, right? You're just in a room. You're like, all right, I'll have a sleep. This is nice. Batman breaking out his infrared goggles from episode 1. Your favorite? His little infrared, like, detective goggles. Yeah, it's Cyclops, very. I thought it was pretty cool, though. And Batman's this great detective, right? And he has these gadgets to help him out of any situation. Yet he fails to see a bunch of fucking tin cans tied to a rope just above the ground. Yeah. And he trips this ghetto alarm. Like, I'm like, how did you do that?
Yeah, that's a classic, like, old school alarm system. Like, I love that. But... And also, like, he used that visor to, like, find this, like, brick wall entrance. But isn't he just going in the fucking sewers? Like, why can't you just lift up Manlit up and go in the sewers?
That's a very good point.
Why do you have to go through, like, this, like, cut-out brick wall thing? Like, he's already kicking down the doors once he's in the sewers anyway and chopping off doorknobs and stuff. He could have just gone in the sewers.
Yeah, because at points we see the kids come out of, like, secret entrances when they're running around the streets. But other times we see them coming out of manholes. So, yeah, they obviously... Maybe the sewers is such a, like, complicated maze that door was, like, the quickest route to it. I don't know.
I'm sure Batman would have studied the sewer systems and known them.
Yeah, because he's so fucking cool. I love that.
Badass. It must be so annoying to be Batman. Like, I've learned everything, and then, like, city planning changes loads of stuff. It's like, I gotta spend, like, a week studying the sewer system.
They changed Upper East Side. It's really annoying.
Oh, fuck's sake. Who's building all this? Wayne Enterprises, sir.
What do you think of Batman's Batmobile security in this episode?
I love that the kid, like, thought it was super cool, you know?
Yeah, but it was a fucking like a big pail of garbage.
Yeah. No one's going to fuck with that.
But how did it come out and, like, go underneath the car?
Because it was fake garbage.
But the way it, like, broke down, like, four walls of the garbage pail broke down and then suddenly all went underneath the Batmobile, and I'm like, how did they do that? This skinny Batmobile.
Lucius Fox has been working hard.
I love how you're like, no, that totally makes sense.
I have no problem with this.
I don't believe in leprechauns, but that makes sense. So the hypnosis tool Batman has in the Batmobile to put the kid to sleep, that seems really dangerous because
it seems like kind of like rapey as well, right?
It seemed a little
the
like
Bill Cosby special right there.
Oh no! It did seem a bit like that. And also, what if he's driving one night and accidentally turns it on? Like, he's dead.
It's like, oh, Alfred's calling me. Let me just turn on my machine. Whoa, 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 whoa.
Sir. Oh, God.
Turn that bloody machine on again, didn't you?
I'll be there in a moment to pick you up. Just finds him sleeping in the Batmobile.
It's just upside down. He's just like...
It's the only way I can sleep, Alfred. Oh, God. Alfred taking care of the kid was really jokes, as we said.
Love it. I really love it. I thought it was heartwarming, thinking that guy raised like a young Bruce when he was just been through tragedy and doing it to this kid as well and treating him normally. I love all that stuff. It makes me love Alfred as a character, stuff like that.
Yeah, especially because he says, like, I don't know anything about children, and Batman just smiles because he does, but, like, to Alfred, he doesn't realize how much, like, he took care of Bruce, you know, as a young boy when he really needed it.
And the one thing I didn't get, though, was the order. Like, you know, he was like, he needs to be bathed, fed, and put to bed. And then Alfred's like, I don't know about that order.
Yes.
But I was like, that's the best order.
Because then he's clean.
Like, instead, I'm going to put him into a clean bed, sir.
And he's come from the sewers.
Yeah. And I was going to wake him up where he's covered in all the sheets and stinky sewer goo. And then I'm going to pick him up and talk about, God, he smells. And put him in the bath. I'm going to feed him, I'm going to put him to bed, and then I'll wash him.
Yeah, and also him putting him in the bath was like what I have to do with my dog when putting him in the bath. Like, my dog literally grabs onto the sides of the door frame and is like, no, don't take me in there.
But I really loved when Bruce was watching, dressed as Batman, just watching like Alfred run around with the kid like in the Batcave and stuff like that, and he smiled. Like I love shit like that.
Yeah, that was fun. And he's like, I wonder if I was that much of a menace. Yeah, that was fun. So what did you think of Batman versus the alligators?
Well, I just drew it last year.
Oh my God, you did. That's right. In the Killer Croc story. Mm-hmm. That's right. That's really cool.
Actually, Batman finding a bunch of alligators and crocodiles in the sewers. It was fine. I thought like that's the only reason that this guy could thwart Batman in any way, right? Fighting these crocs.
Yeah, I mean, he's no match for Batman physically.
But at one point, he like opens a croc's mouth so wide, and the croc goes like, oh, like his eyes light up.
I think he murdered that crocodile.
You think he killed him there?
He breaks the jaw. Like he's holding it like open so he doesn't bite, and then he forces it, and when he forces it, the croc's eye like
lights up. Oh my God, you're right. He killed that fucking.
He killed that gator.
Well, as we've established, Batman is a murderer, but only of like animals and plants and things.
Yeah,
you all are.
So Batman implies that he's tempted to kill the Sewer King after saving him from being run.
This whole episode, he's like, I'm going to murder this motherfucker.
Yeah, and what I don't get is he's just like, I'm tempted to do it myself. But only a few minutes ago, he kicked him into an alligator-infested waters and was just like, a gruesome fate for a gruesome man. And I'm like, buddy, you accepted that you had killed him moments ago, and now when you have the chance, you're like, nah, I've changed my mind. I'm going to leave you to the courts. So the kids are rescued from the sewers as the sun rises, and Batman watches from the rooftops with his cape blowing in the wind, and that is the end of the episode. And I'd much rather your ending, Bud, where you have a quick scene of them in the orphanage owned by the Wayne Foundation, and Bruce Wayne comes to visit, and as he's getting into the car, the kid sees Alfred
Alfred gives him a little wink.
Yes, and then he's like, oh my God, Batman, Bruce Wayne, like both of them have saved me and given me like, hope for my future. What a great ending that would have been. I love your ending.